Hello, color class. I want to talk to you for a few minutes today about some of the great things that came from reading your goals for the class. And when I say that they're great, I mean that because what I do in the class is ideally guided by what you're looking for. So when people tell me the questions that are on their mind about color in their own work or just in how it behaves, wondering questions about how it behaves, that is so great for me because then I can immediately respond with a hopefully not too long video like this one, maybe explaining some of it. So I want to talk about kind of a chicken and egg thing. Actually, there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but I'm going to try to confine myself to just two concepts. One is a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, that is to say, which came first. And the second thing is to talk about a phrase, a term called local color, because they both kind of relate in a way. And the whole thing could also be put under the under the umbrella of things like the triad, the tetrad, the split complement, these classic color schemes. Because, and here's the big secret, it's great. You go to a textbook and it will explain to you that a piece of art, we're going to look at this John Singer Sargent watercolor right here, and it's made with gouache also, so it's a great choice. It's just a greeting card. You will say that this is it's primarily kind of a lavender color, a purple, and a kind of a green yellow and a green blue, which I think makes it a kind of a split complement color scheme. Now that's just the dominant colors in it, right? You can see, I keep holding it crooked. You can see that there are many more colors than just those three, right? In fact, I would say that like in a square inch or square centimeter, kind of a way of thinking about this, the predominant color is actually kind of an ivory off-white color, right? This is a very high key. That means to say it's got really bright, light colors in it. A high key painting or piece of art. They talk about high key and low key, and it's just exactly like it sounds. High key means that the colors have a lot of white and are very bright, and low key means that they are subdued and somber and have more darks in them. Okay? All right. A couple things too. If you remember talking about shadows, you will see that he has chosen to depict the shadows of the tree in a very lilac kind of lavender color. And I would suspect that when he was sitting there looking at this outside, this kind of looks to me like a painting you would have done en plein air, as the French say, or alla prima, as the Italians say. And that just means that you were sitting outside looking at this. You didn't draw it first and go back inside, although that would be okay too. There's not like a wrong way. But sometimes you'll see painters sitting outside painting alla prima or en plein air. And I think that probably he looked at this and thought, yeah, that looks kind of like a lavender shadow to me. And I think he probably liked that because there's some, this is so hard. It's so reversed. It's like a mirror for me, so I get all confused. See this, like there's some water, like a seascape way back there. And that's kind of a blue color that both relates. It's sort of in between, right? It's not as cool as that lilac of the roof and the shadow, but it's also not as green as the blue-green of the front door. And that's a kind of a like, it's linking those for us, right? Because it's in between. Now, when you hear me analyze a picture like this, you've got to know, and this is the chicken egg thing, he wasn't thinking these things. He was sitting down there with his paintbrush and his watercolor paper and his pots of paint, and he was trying to record faithfully what he saw in this case, right? And make it look good, right? He had two things, let's say. He had, I want this to look like it looks, and I want it to look good. So like maybe he thought, it would look better if this was a little more lilac, like this roof, like this roof, right? So that's sort of what you'll hear sometimes people call that artistic license or whatever, poetic license. But I mean, it's silly to say that you need a license to make art. You don't, right? You need a brush and paint and something to paint, and that's all you need. And we agree consensually what we're going to call great art. So let's not even talk about that. Let's not even get involved in that. If you're making an image, we will call that art, but it would probably be more proper to call it a painting or an image. I've painted an image. Anyway, why do I not want to get into the ontology of that? Because it's very interesting, but it's also not really going to tell you much about color. So we'll skip it for now. Okay, this painting is painted in a manner called, he's observing, he's recording local color. Local color means you're trying to get it to look like it looks. Okay, and I'm going to show you some other examples of that. And I'm going to show you the opposite of that, which doesn't really have a name. Local color is local color. The other thing where you kind of say, I wanted to put a figure with a green shirt in there, but the person was actually wearing a blue shirt, or there was no person. That's not got a name. It's not called unlocal color, which is really should be, shouldn't it? It would make like perfect sense. But I missed my chicken and egg moment. He's not thinking, I'm going to use a split complement. He's thinking, I'm going to paint this. Now, that's, you say, oh, well, whatever. Okay, I guess he didn't have much going on. But that's not true. Because what he really did was pick this to record the local color of. He saw it in his artist's eyes way as something worth painting. And how he framed this. How much of the roof is cut, how much of the ground you see, how much of the ocean you see, how much of the door, how much of the window. That is all an artistic choice. And I submit to you that people don't make them from a formula. When we're analyzing art, we're kind of going backwards, right? We aren't making art. We're going, look how this green relates to that green over on the other side of the picture. See how that keeps our little thing in balance. See how those diagonals of the roof keep it kind of interesting. See how dynamic that jutting corner of the house is. That keeps it kind of like lively, right? And all this sense of light on this wall, it's really all about this beautiful shadow, isn't it? So the lace work of that shadow of the sun coming through that tree. When you go to make a painting of something like this, it's because you love it, you see it, and you want to record it. You want to be part of it. And so you sit down with your paint and you try to be part of it. You don't think, I want to make a painting that's going to be made later into a card because it's so great because it has a split complement. That's that chicken egg thing, right? Like the split complement, or how we describe a color scheme, is coming later. It's not the intuitive choice that the artist is making. And you may think, well, I don't know how I would make an intuitive choice. But of course you do. And one of the problems with intuitive choices is you don't get a lot of satisfaction or validation in that you pick the right one, right? It's not like adding some numbers and getting the right figure. You don't know, and you may have made a mistake. But generally, my experience of students and the choices they make about color and about their own work is if they say, what do I want it to do? Like really, what feels right for this piece? They make the best choice possible. Okay? It's very simple, though, to get kind of bogged down by the voices in your head or the voices outside of your head saying, how's that going to work? That doesn't look too good. Don't you think you should put some more blue in that? Whatever they're saying. Watch the voices. If you're hearing a lot of voices while you're making art, no, I don't think you need to check with any mental health specialist. I think you need to give those guys something to do because they will run you ragged. Your inner critic will drive you mad. So send them away to go do something else for a little while. Tell them, we'll get back to that. When I'm done painting, we can come in and talk about whether it's a split complement or not and whether the diagonals are interesting and 100 other little things about design and analyzing visual work. Okay, we can come back to you. I'll get back to you, you could say to them. And then you can sort of dismiss them for a little while. Tell them to go get a cup of coffee. Because you cannot, the decisions you make to make a piece of art or a creative decision of any kind, if you're writing, if you're making music, that's not the same part of your mind that goes in and analyzes, okay? It's a different part, and it can be difficult to distinguish the different parts of your mind, and you just kind of have to train yourself. Otherwise, what might happen is you might only ever get that art critic and they might not even make anything because the art critic is so busy telling you it probably won't be very good. I mean, this is something everyone experiences. Sometimes you'll hear it called the blank paper syndrome, right? Like the empty page, like that big void just staring at you. What are you supposed to put in there that's going to mean anything? That's going to make a damn bit of difference? You know what? Yeah, what are you supposed to put in there? Well, if you put nothing in there, you know you're not getting there. So you got to try. And trying and showing up is kind of a big thing with this. You know, that's we talk about that and it's become a little bit cliche, but it's kind of, there's a true part of that if you try, you are trying and you are doing something. Richard Diebenkorn used to say we should always be doing something. And he doesn't mean like trying to make a painting. He means trying to do something with the art materials you have, right? Okay. All right, I want to talk about two painters. I'm going to talk actually about Nathan Olivero, who's kind of a contemporary of Richard Diebenkorn's. And I'm also going to talk about Georgia O'Keeffe. Why these two? I just went to my shelf and these ones jumped out. Georgia O'Keeffe, because she is a painter who is observing and recording, that's right, local color. This is what it looked like, right? And you can say, well, those those trees over on the this side, whatever side that is for you, they had more leaves and stuff. It's not that she's not simplifying and giving us the essentials or abstracting to a certain degree, but what she's not doing, Lordy, huh? What she's not doing is really making up those colors. She's pretty much trying to record the colors that she sees in those clouds just as she sees them. And I can tell you, I've seen clouds that look just like that, with that lilac in them. And I've seen trees when they start to turn that look just exactly like those cottonwoods, right? Okay, so local color. And that applies to almost all of her paintings. Like, let's look at this one. I think this one's a watercolor, but it doesn't matter. I have so much trouble positioning this so you can see it good. Makes me feel like such an idiot. Can you see that kind of cow skull in front of the she does such a beautiful job with sky, doesn't she? Like, that's just so perfect. Anyway, and those trees. She is possibly outside, possibly painting this right where she's sitting. She could have taken photographs, though, too, or gone inside or sketched it and then written on it. I've seen a lot of painters do that. Their sketchbook will have little pencil drawings in it with like notes about, like, written right on it. This is just a photograph, so that's not a good example. It'll have notes that say, you know, frog green here. Or whatever it is, okay? So that is local color, and you will hear painters and people talk about that. And we have a big project coming up where we're going to try to record very accurately as we can, local color. And that's a fun struggle because there is something to compare it to, right? It's not just nothing. You're going to try to get that thing to look like that thing, and that's going to be challenging. Okay, another painter. I want to find this. I should have put my finger in the thing because now, oh, here, Nathan Olivero. This is a figurative painter from the Bay Area. Do you see? I had it and then I lost it. Do you see that beautiful figure? Very, very painterly painter. It's all just beautiful texture and emotion and movement in paint and that sort of lone figure in the center. Like almost a silhouette. Now, these do look like the colors of a sunset, but I don't think we're necessarily supposed to be thinking this is someone standing in front of like an ocean or something. This is not local color, right? I would say that this figure was not this sort of pale ochre at all. There was probably a person standing there and, you know, look, who knows what they were wearing. But this is a painting where the artist is going for a mood and a feeling and a formal thing. And he's not so focused on what the colors our eyes perceive are. He wants the colors he wants, if you know what I'm saying. One is not better than the other at all. They're both, as a viewer, I am completely satisfied with both of these artists. You don't need to be one or the other, and you can certainly flip between them and even combine, right? I used some, I painted outside, I painted everything in local color except for a couple of other things, you know, that I sort of stuck in there. That would be kind of a surreal thing maybe, but there's no, I'm back to that chicken egg thing. There aren't, when we talk about art, we want to talk about it in a way It's kind of talking about the essentials and breaking it down. But that's not the experience of making art, right? It's not instructions. Okay. So that's Nathan Oliveira. I invite you to look him up. He's a great painter. There's another one here, another figure. Here's another one. Here's a great one. No, that's another guy. Whoops, never mind. Let me see if I can find it. Give me a minute. Maybe it's not going to work. It may not work. Oh, it doesn't have to be a painting. You can have non-local color in sculptures. This is a sculptor named Manuel Neri, also a contemporary of all these same painters I'm talking about, Richard Diebenkorn and Nathan Oliveira. This was actually an instructor of mine, really wonderful man, and quite a fine artist as well. Let me see if I can find, here we go. Here I'm finally back at the area I wanted to be in. This is another Nathan Oliveira. And see, in some ways, this painting it's got a figure in it, but it's much more about the color, isn't it? It's much more about the collision of that blue and that yellow and that sort of form back here that's sort of the two colors combined, right? So the subject of this painting is a figure, but the content is some kind of emotional thing. I think you especially see that in the red one, right? Like, this is sort of, for me, I don't know. I feel like this is a slightly sad painting. The feeling, the mood is a little sad, a little somber, a little, even though it's painting all those warm, lovely reds and pinks, there's something reflective and a little bit melancholy about that image for me. Now, that doesn't have to be the same message that everybody gets either. That's the other thing about artists that, we could argue all day about what the content of a picture was, but we can usually agree on the subject, which is there was a figure. There was an orangish figure with a reddish ground, right? That we can say. What it felt like or meant to us is another thing. And this is where we get into this weird location again, where you might think, well, I want to set a mood in a painting, and I want it to be like that, a melancholy mood. How can I do that? What color do I choose? Well, I would say there's two places you can look, okay? And this is so weird because it's not really a recipe, right? I wish that we could do it that way. Except for, what would you be doing if you were following a recipe for something, for chicken casserole? You would make a chicken casserole and everybody would recognize it as a chicken casserole and they would be getting exactly what they expected, chicken casserole. You don't need to be the kind of artist that gives everybody what they're expecting. You can give them something you don't even expect, right? You can give them something completely unexpected. All right, back to this problem though, right? A recipe. I want my picture to be melancholy. I want a sad, somber mood in it. What color should I use? Well, some come to my mind right away. I bet some come to yours. And I would say those first ideas are the ones to follow. But let's say you're not sure. There's always getting a consensus. I love to do that. Hey, I'm thinking about painting a picture of a kind of an internal turmoil and sadness. Do you think pink would be good? And my friend might say, pink? That sounds like you should be painting more of a blue painting, don't you think? Or have you thought about olive green, right? And then I could take that home and I could think about that home, meaning like mull it over. I could ask some other people, what do you think is a somber color? And they might say, ooh, brown, and I could go, okay, well, maybe a brown painting. I could also go to the archives, meaning the whole entire visual history that we have in the world, which is legion, right? So many images everywhere. And I could say, I need to look at some paintings of sadness and melancholy and see what colors people are using. And I could do it that way. I could use the exact same palette as someone who was painting, I'm thinking of Caspar Friedrich. I don't know if you know this painting. It's sort of a classic melancholy painting. It's actually dreadful, but it doesn't matter. It's very Gothic. It's got blue and white and some dark. So, I could just look at some melancholy pictures and steal / borrow / use their exact palette. And that would probably work. So there's the two things, right? But I think training yourself to respond more from yourself, if you will, is a great thing. Because you won't let yourself down. trust me on this. If you think it should be a yellow painting, a bright, sunny yellow painting of Melancholia, it will be. You will communicate that to us much more clearly and better than you know. So don't second guess yourself too much, right? Other thing is, okay, you make your painting out of bright yellow and it's supposed to feel sad, and you show it to a few people and they go, I love how happy it is. Well, no big deal. You can start again. Okay? It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be that everybody gets what you put into it for it to be rewarding or worthwhile to have made it. Okay? All right, that's probably enough today. But remember that term local color, because you'll probably run into it. And remember that there's another kind of color which doesn't have a name, which is you using the colors that you think you feel like it should be. All right? Thanks a lot for tuning in.